Hey guys, King of Charmanders here. Alright, so here are the top teams for Kanto Cup. Now, disclaimer, this is the top teams from the previous time around. So, the top teams from the previous time around should theoretically still work this time around because there's going to be minimal changes for the Kanto Cup. The only mere difference is you're going to see probably more Mews, and you're probably going to see a lot more Alolan Ninetales and Cantonian Ninetales possibly because of the new Weather Ball buffs. But if you did use your Team Burn before from the Kanto Cup, it should still work. Now remember, in the Kanto Cup, your rating will not be affected. So if you are trying to gun for Legend or gun for Elite Award, guess what? Your ELO will not move. So your time for Season 6 will end before this, so you really don't have to worry about it. Have fun. Do what you want. If you still want to win, get Stardust, etc., that's probably the best way to play the Kanto Cup. But don't feel like you are compelled to actually play the Kanto Cup. Again, these are the top teams from the previous time around, but as you see, there's still, because Kanto Cup, there hasn't been much changes other than the ones that I mentioned. These top teams should still rank very high and still be extremely powerful for the Kanto Cup. Alright, so the first team that's actually featured is the number 5 one, which is Alolan Muck lead. Machamp as, I'm assuming Shadow Champ is your safe switch, and Alolan Marowak in the closer. I think Alolan Marowak's actually the safe switch in this scenario. I wouldn't switch it in a Shadow Champ because if you have a Charmer, you die. Or if they have a Charmer, actually, you die really fast. Alolan Muck's a really great lead though because there's a lot of things that actually like neutralize Alolan Muck. It beats all the Psychics, and basically Psychic is like the most polarizing archetype. It also beats Alolan Marowak, so it beats a lot of things in the lead, or has a neutral chance against them, is why Alolan Muck is so good. As you see here, if you look at the rating, it's not very bulky, but that's mostly due to Shadow Champ. Shadow Champ is not super glassy, but the amount of damage it puts out makes it a good pick for the Kanto Cup. Now you see good coverage, good safety, good consistency. As you see here, this team has a ton of coverage. Remember what I mentioned about Alolan Muck being pretty good? Guess what? There's not a lot of stuff in the lead that actually beats it, with the exception of, or like convincingly beats it actually, with the exception of Alolan Golem. So yes, an electric rock battery is what takes out Alolan Muck, ironically, and a giant rock compared to everything else. As you see, Alolan Muck, as I said, has neutral or beats a lot of other leads. That's why it's so powerful. Now, the reason why Shadow Champ is such a boss, and why it has 4 arms, and why it's so swole and it's so freaking good, is because as you look here in the middle, it literally annihilates a lot of the meta, with the exception of Charmers and Psychic types. If it's not a Charmer, if it's not a Psychic type, or if it's a Flying type, you essentially run it over. And even then, you can actually KO Charizard and Golbat, as you see below, with Rock Slide. So Shadow Champ is terrifying. If you have Shadow Champ against a good matchup, it will literally run a lot of things over. Alolan Marowak is Alolan Marowak. It has a ton of coverage, does a lot of damage, and a good amount of bulk, which is why it's so powerful as a switch closer or a lead. As you see, this team complements each other really well. Again, as long as you avoid Shadow Champ with having a really bad matchup, Alolan Muck is a great league, and Alolan Marowak is a great generalist overall. Unless you get caught by Pidgeot. Pidgeot walls Alolan Marowak, remember that. So, if you see a Pidgeot, don't lock it into Alolan Marowak. There you go, I said it. So this team, the only real potential threat for this team is probably Dragonite. So basically a Dragon Breath user. And the reason why Dragonite threatens you so much more than, say, Dragonair is because Dragonite has that flying type, so it resists Mod Shadow Champ's counters. Now, the thing about Dragonite, it can still get yeeted by a bunch of rocks, so you can still bury it under a bunch of boulders, as long as you hit it with a Rock Slide. But the thing is, you won't probably see a lot of Dragonites, especially with the Alolan Ninetales getting buffed. You definitely won't see a lot of ice. You won't see a lot of dragons. I can foresee you not seeing a lot of dragons in this cup, especially now that, like I said, Alolan Ninetales is now buffed. As you see here, this team really does really well. Again, this considers Alolan Ninetales in the current cup. So this is the old teams that were top teams, and it still considers the newer teams with all the other buffs. As you see here, it still does really freaking good. Again, Dragonite and Dragonair, even though those are probably going to be our biggest threats, You're not going to see a lot of them in the lead, for sure. So this team has a threat score of 599. Really good threat score, but as you see, overall, it does very, very well. Your lead is great. Your back row also has a lot of coverage, but this team actually does very, very good. Again, Alolan Muck is a fantastic lead because it has a non-neutral coverage. Shadow Champ does a crap ton of damage, and Alolan Muck Airwhack is a great generalist for Kanto Cup. Alright, team number 4 features Alolan Marowak as the lead, Lapras as a safe switch, and Wigglytuff as a closer. So, Lapras is a really great safe switch. Because of the amount of Charmers around, you don't see a lot of Shadow Champs as far as a switch or anything like that. Alolan Marowak is also a very, very powerful lead. So, with this team, it has Wigglytuff in the back, so you can use the Wigglytuff. The Charmer 2 Shield strat is very viable in the Kanto Cup. But, like I said, the keywords can. So, Lapras is, however, a very powerful safe switch, does a lot of damage, and if you can get Skull Bash rolling, you can live through a lot of punishment. Now, as you see here, it has a fantastic coverage, and it's extremely safe. This team is good. It has good bulk, it has good consistency. Now, the thing about this team, what makes it so good is, as you see here in the lead, a lot of things that Alolan Marowak lose to, you have double coverage with Lapras and Wigglytuff, or you have a chance against them. Wigglytuff can possibly bully its way through Alolan Muck as long as you have 2 shields, too. There's a lot to play with this team. Your biggest threats, of course, are going to be Dragon types because they do resist Fire Spin. Also, Blastoise because, of course, Water beats Fire. And Pokemon that let you down. Now, the reason why Hypno gives you kind of a hard time is because it has Shadow Ball. So, Hypno, Alolan Marowak, you'll be able to bait with Weather, you'll be able to take it out with Shadow Bone, but you can bait too. But even if you don't come out of it, Lapras and Wigglytuff can take out Hypno. So, a lot of very good safe back row. The only big target you have is, as you see here, is Alolan Graveler. Alolan Graveler wrecks your world. So, Alolan Graveler will take a good chunk out of Alolan Marowak and Lapras. It's not completely unbeatable, however, you have to somehow have Wigglytuff with shields and be able to run over your opponent's team, otherwise you lose. Other than that, if you can avoid Alolan Graveler, as you see here, you have a great time against a lot of other picks, and you have a Pokemon that covers at least one type. So you have a lot, as you see here, you have a lot of things that cover each type, except for Alolan Marowak. Alolan Marowak, you're gonna get the mirror, and Lapras actually, there's a lot of ways you can play the mirror with Alolan Marowak. One, you either Shadow Bone through shields and you win the lead and you win switch, or you can break both shields if you choose to, then send in Lapras. Lapras Surf will chunk down Alolan Marowak pretty well, so it's really up to how you want to play the mirror match. But it's also one of your problems with this team, along with Alolan Graveler, just because Lapras Ice Shards are resisted, but your Surfs do a ton of damage, and Wigglytuff's Charms are resisted, but you can do a ton of damage. As you see, the threat score is 586. Relatively low threat score. If you like Wigglytuff 2-shield strat and you like Lapras, then this team is for you. Alolan Marowak, Lapras, and you have Wigglytuff in the back. Really good team. So you could save shields for Wigglytuff, and like I said, great coverage with the Mons, as long as you don't see Alolan Graveler. So, pretty great team. Alright, this team actually features, in my opinion, which should be the #1 team. It features Dugong, Hypno, and Snorlax. Now, here's what's nuts about this. I refreshed this page like 17 times. No, I'm not lying. I refreshed it a lot. Because I remember there was this one team, the last time I did analysis on these things, where it's just like, there's no way this team's still that good. Behold. Yes, it's real. It's real. This team has A's across the board. It's nuts. It's crazy. Like, it is. Like, you think with the newest updates, with like all the Lickitung XL and with Alolan Ninetales and regular Ninetales getting buffed, you think things would change? Nope! It's still a beast mode team. And the reason why it's a beast mode team is because the only thing that really convincingly beats you is Lapras. And even then, you beat a lot of other things. As you see, you dominate, you beat Snorlax, you can beat Lapras, you can actually chunk Lapras down. Yes, Lapras beats you in the mirror. But with Dugong, you could safe switch with Hypno. There's a lot of things you can do. As you see here, you absolutely annihilate a lot of meta, or you have double coverage against a lot of things. Literally, the only thing you don't have double coverage against the immediate meta is Wigglytuff. You could beat Wigglytuff with Dugong, however, or Mew. Wigglytuff and Mew. So 4 matchups, the rest you have double coverage, which is nuts. There's no other, like, this is the only team I've seen with A's across the board. And A's across the board is freaking good. Has great bulk, has great coverage, has great safety, and it's consistent. So this team is really, really good. As you see here, your only threats, as I mentioned before, are Lapras and Snorlax. The rest of them you have play against. Yeah, Alolan Raichu is scary, but you can save switch into Hypno, and then you have Snorlax. So you can actually beat Hypno and Snorlax, and then you can use Dugong in the back for everything else. Or save it with Shield. So there's a lot of things you can do. Having Snorlax and Lapras, Snorlax might be a more popular pick, but with Snorlax you can still debuff it. And Dugong is so thick that it still can make a lot of plays happen. Again, really good team. In my opinion, this is the best team. Dugong is really expensive. That's the only issue with it. However, Hypno and Snorlax, those have been around for a really long time. So if you already have a Legacy Dugong, and if you have Hypno and Snorlax built, this team is beast. This team will get you a lot of W's. I've actually practiced with it a little bit, like on Sims, and practice, and this thing is actually boss. Don't let the threat score fool you. This team is monstrous. Especially, yeah, it's monstrous. Alright, team number 2 features Alolan, Marowak, and Hypno, and then they kind of just changed something in the back. This first team features Alolan, Marowak lead, you got the Hypno save switch, and you got Wigglytuff. So this team is actually still very good. The Alolan, Marowak, Hypno core is really powerful in this cup, given that, and with Wigglytuff in the back, you could still use the Wiggly 2 shield strat. So this team is really, really powerful, and really does well for the Kanto Cup still. So scroll down, as you see here, great coverage, great safety, good bulk, good consistency. Not as great as the team I mentioned before. However, if you want to run this team and you like Wigglytuff, this team does not do very bad. It's still very, very powerful. As you see here, Alolan Muck is your worst nightmare. And yeah, I mean, yeah, Alolan Muck is pretty much your worst nightmare. You can probably throw in Wigglytuff and like double charm it down, but you gotta pray that they don't have anything. Or you could sack Alolan, Marowak, and Hypno and pray that you can beat everything else with Hypno with the Wigglytuff 2 shield. That's what makes this team kind of tough to use, is because Alolan Muck and Hypno both use to Alolan Muck. However, if you see everything else, you actually haven't answered everything else. Literally, that's the only thing that hard counters you, which is Alolan Muck. That's like the only thing that gives you be like, what do I do? That's the only thing. Other than that, it's very powerful. Again, you could probably use Hypno and Wigglytuff. There's probably a way you could like finesse it to win this match, but try to take out Alolan Muck. If you see it, take it out as much as you can. If you see it in the back, that's a lot better than seeing it in the lead versus Alolan Marowak. As you see here, again, AWAC is the only thing that literally gives you a problem. This is why this team is so strong. AWAC is Amok. Amok, as long as you could take out Amok, you whack Amok, look at, you have coverage. One thing covers something in the meta. As you hear, there's coverage against at least one thing. Because of that, not super low threat score, but you got a low threat score. It's a really good team. If you are comfortable, like, this team is like, as far as like full-blown coverage, again, this team is very good and very, very well. And you can utilize the Wigglytuff 2 shield strat if you want. So this team gives you the option to have that fast damage charmer, and you have a very powerful core. Again, you have to kind of avoid Alolan Muck. If you see Alolan Muck, take it out as fast as you can, or you die. It's that simple. It's either eat or be eaten by an Alolan Muck. Alright, here we have the most powerful team according to pvpoke.com statistically. I still think the number 3 team is better, but statistically this team is still extremely powerful. I can see why it's really strong for several reasons. You're going to see it here. Now, as you see here, as I mentioned before, the Alolan, Marowak, and Hypno core is insanely powerful. Putting Snorlax in the back, you give a really big, bulky, and yet Pokemon. You also have double safe switch. So you have Hypno and you have Snorlax as a pliable safe switch. The reason why Wigglytuff doesn't work in that third safe switch shot is because you only throw Wiggly in if you're weak against it, or if it's a Alolan Muck or something like that. Other than that, Wigglytuff, you do not want to switch in because Wigglytuff doesn't do well against Alolan Marowak. It also doesn't do very well against, like, Beedrill, other things. So that's why you kind of don't want to sacrifice your Wigglytuff. Anyways, for this team, as you see here, this team does have great safety, good coverage, bulk, and consistency. So as you see here, if you scroll down, the reason why it's really good is because your only threat is Snorlax itself and Dragonair. Your chances of seeing a Dragonair are probably really low, especially because of Alolan Ninetales. By the way, you also beat Alolan Ninetales. You also beat Kanto Ninetales. Well, yeah, you give Kanto Ninetales problems. As you see here, those are your only 2 losses. You're not likely to see Dragonair. Snorlax, you could deal with just fine. With Snorlax, what you can do is just safe switch into Hypno, and then you can make some plays happen. And then you have your own Snorlax, or there's a lot of things you can do. But either way, this team is very good. This team basically just flips, again, like this flips the Wigglytuff. The reason why this team doesn't do very well is because you do have 2 big things, Dragonair and Snorlax. You can probably see Dragonair or Dragon Breath users, so it's not even foolproof. So that's just the thing. Again, this team falls to both Dragonair and Gyarados. Don't worry about Persian. Well, actually, Dragonair and Snorlax. It also falls to Gyarados. So Gyarados, I don't expect you to see a lot of them in this cup, but you could possibly see it, and it's actually not that bad because Alolan. It's kind of bad against Alolan Marowak, but Alolan Marowak you can still Shadow Bone it. There's still a lot of plays you can make against Gyarados, and along with that, you still have Hypno with Thunder Punch. So there's still plays to be made. Don't let Gyarados fool you. But that's the thing that this team has versus this team 2. However, because those patterns the patterns of its weaknesses are so unlikely to happen, this is why this team's really good. Because your only real thing you have to worry about is Snorlax, and even then, you can take on Snorlax. Arguably, Alolan Muck is still worse than everything else, but you know what? Like, Snorlax is really good. So this is, in fact, the most powerful team. High threat score. Again, version 2 and version 3 are probably better than this team. Statistically, this team is the most powerful because it beats the most combinations. And even with Alolan Ninetales, I can predict that this team's still going to do extremely well. Hey guys, King of Charmanders here. Alright, so here are the top teams for Kanto Cup. Now, disclaimer, this is the top teams from the previous time around. So, the top teams from the previous time around should theoretically still work this time around because there's going to be minimal changes for the Kanto Cup. The only mere difference is you're going to see probably more Mews, and you're probably going to see a lot more Alolan Ninetales, and Cantonian Ninetales possibly because of the new Weather Ball buffs. But, if you did use your team from before from the Kanto Cup, it should still work. Now remember, in the Kanto Cup, your rating will not be affected. So if you are trying to gun for Legend or gun for a leaderboard, guess what? Your elo will not move. So, your time for Season 6 will end before this, so you really don't have to worry about it. Have fun. Do what you want. If you still want to win, get Stardust, etc., that's probably the best way to play the Kanto Cup. But don't feel like you are compelled to actually play the Kanto Cup. Again, these are the top teams from the previous time around, but as you see, there's still, because Kanto Cup, there hasn't been much changes other than the ones that I mentioned. These top teams should still rank very high and still be extremely powerful for the Kanto Cup.